Hey, everybody. We're back to talk about how do I develop healthier boundaries. And yesterday we were talking about own your emotions. And what we're going to talk about today is a skill, if you will, a biblical, clear teaching that dovetails into this so beautifully. And again, I love to talk about this particular stuff because it's very empowering and liberating. So let me just hit you with a couple of scriptures, and then we'll use them to go where we're going to go today. And probably these scriptures are going to be fairly familiar to you. Romans 12:2 says to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now just slow that down. I know we've all heard it however many times, but the key to change somehow has to do with our minds changing, our thoughts changing, what we think, how we think, why we think that way, changing. Ephesians chapter 4, 22, 3 and 4. 22 says, put off the old man. Now, what I hear in that is the way you used to do things. Put off the way you used to do things. 24 says, put on the new man. In other words, learn and practice some new ways of doing things. But sandwiched in the middle, put off the old man, put on the new man, 22 and 24. In the middle, verse 23 says, be renewed in the spirit of your mind. So you got Romans 12:2 says, we're changed by renewing our mind. Ephesians 4:23 says, be renewed in the spirit of your mind. And number one, I just think it's cool that the wording's a little bit different there. Spirit of your mind, I would say, is the deeper part of our mind that we're not consciously aware of, but still affects us in very powerful, profound ways. 2 Corinthians 10. And again, I'm just throwing you some thoughts at you so that you see that where we're going to go today is very biblically anchored. 2 Corinthians 10, 3 through 6 says, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And just a few phrases later, it says this, taking every thought captive. Okay, whoa, slow that one down. So I don't know how many thoughts we have every minute, every second, every hour, but lots of them. And what it's saying is that there's a way to grab a thought and take it captive. And that somehow that's an important part of our growth and development. So renewing our mind, be renewed in the spirit of our mind, and capture our thoughts. Of course, Philippians 4 talks about think on these things. So there's this whole thing about thinking. Proverbs 23:7 says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Thinking. Big deal, right? So what I want to talk to you about today, kind of a weird little title, the ants are ruining your picnic. And obviously it's a play on words, but I believe what we're going to talk about today is the key to learning how to own and manage our emotions. And again, part of why I love to teach this particular course is how much it's helped me, and the very things we're going to talk about today are part of that. So most people feel powerless and frustrated by their emotional responses and cycles. Most people have moments in a relationship, in a day, in a month, whatever, where they just feel like they cannot manage and control their anger, their sadness, they look around, they think, I have no reason to not be happy and joyful, but I'm not. And we feel frustrated and powerless that we can't seem to make our emotions do what we want them to do. And I'm not going to tell you that we can make them do what we want them to do that directly, but I think we can do better at it than we typically do. I'd want to say this to all of us. We're being bullied by our own thoughts and feelings. We have thoughts. We are not our thoughts. And that'll make more sense as we plow along here. So let's look at a kind of just a simple little example that probably all of us can relate to in one way or another. Ants, A-N-T-S, ants are automatic negative thoughts. Automatic negative thoughts. We talked last lesson about that God knew we were going to spend our lives on this earth in a hostile environment. And I believe we are much quicker to see the negative than we are the positive. We're much quicker to see what can hurt us than what can help us. And we're much quicker at practicing, rehearsing, and implementing strategies to protect ourselves than we are to express ourselves and reach out in ways that are not hurtful. So ants are automatic negative thoughts. Let me walk you through just this interesting little experience that a person's having that I think any one of us could relate to. The situation, you've been invited to a party taking place this evening. This morning, you overhear someone at work or someone in your world saying some bad things about you to some of your friends. And these are all people that will be at that party. So you're invited, but you overhear people saying some not so nice things about you. All right, where does it go from there? So let's walk through one possible scenario. Your thought is, they must all think the same. No one likes me. Now, do you know that to be true? Of course not. Is it a fairly common place to go? Probably. So that's what you're thinking. The situation is what it is. What you're thinking is, they must all think the same. No one likes me. What are you feeling? You feel kind of low, rejected, hurt, angry. What do you do with that? I'm not going to the party. So you don't go to the party. All right, now the situation is you're sitting at home that night watching television all by yourself. What are you thinking? I'll bet they're all having a good laugh behind my back. So you have a situation, there's your thoughts. What are you feeling? Now you're even more low, more rejected, and more sad. Okay? Same situation, but let's go through it differently this time. You've been invited to a party taking place this evening. You overhear some people speaking negatively about you, and it hurts. But what are you thinking? And thinking is really what? Talking to yourself. So what are you saying to yourself about the situation? Now, we walk through that side. Let's look at it a little differently. So now you're thinking, you can't win everyone over. Why would they invite me if they didn't like me? Now, all that changed is the interpretation and meaning you assigned to the situation. You still were invited to the same party. You still heard the same friends saying not so nice things about you. The difference is you've chosen to interpret it differently. You can't win everyone over. Why would they invite me if they didn't like me? Now, how are you feeling? Slightly hurt, but I'm okay. What is your action? You go to the party. Now you're at the party. What's the situation? You're at the party having a great time. What are you thinking? I'm having a lot of fun with my friends. They obviously do like me, so I can forget about what was said. Now, how are you feeling? Great, confident, slightly relieved, and you have a win in the column because you handled a situation that maybe historically would have spun in a negative direction. Now, my wife and I are sitting on the couch one time and watching TV. I don't remember, American Idol or something. I don't know. And phone rings. And I have my daughter's permission to tell this story, by the way. But my middle daughter, had moved to Texas and just very courageously felt like God led her to go to the University of Texas and get her master's degree. And we were so proud of her. But she pretty much went by herself. And it was rough. And it was emotionally challenging. So there was a good bit of what you might call counseling calls. So my wife and I are sitting there just chilling, watching whatever. And the phone rings and caller ID, it's my daughter. And so I answer the call. And sure enough, she's not in a good place. And basically, this is what she says. Great week last week. This week, I'm crying every day. Great week last week. This week, I'm crying every day. Well, it's not real estate because she doesn't have any real estate. It's not money because she doesn't have any money. It's not the stock market because she doesn't have any stock market. And I happen to know it wasn't a boy situation because, whatever. We all stay pretty close, so I knew that wasn't it. So I kind of knew it wasn't any specific thing. Have you ever given a pill to a cat? Not an easy thing to do. And if they still have their claws. And sometimes helping someone is kind of like giving a pill to a cat. You know it's going to do them good, but it doesn't mean they're going to like it, right? So I'm kind of like, oh, I got to see if she can get around this corner. So I say, baby, you know what changed from last week to this week? And she's like, no, I don't, man. That's why I'm just frustrated. And I said, darling, what changed is between your ears. And to my shock and amazement, pretty quickly and pretty easily, the cat took the pill. So I said, baby, what's changed is the way you're thinking. Something has shifted between last week and this week. And she was with me. So now I'm like, okay, God, give me something practical to give her. And God gave me 3 little questions that I've used a lot since in my own life, because I feel like these 3 questions sort of, when we find ourselves in an emotional place where we kind of don't know how we got there, they help kind of center us. So, and we're journalers, we love to journal. So I said, baby, take these 3 questions and journal them a little bit. And here were the 3 questions. Because I said, something's shifted, and probably looking at these 3 questions will help you start finding where it shifted. So I said, question number 1, how do I see God? How do I see God? I don't mean theologically. I mean right now. How do I see him? Is he off at a distance with his arms folded? Is he up close and wanting to be with me? Do I feel like I've disappointed him? In other words, how do I see him? Is he welcoming? Is he for me? Because a lot of times maybe we'll fall into something that we know we shouldn't have, and we just get down on ourselves and we feel like God has changed and moved away or something. So number 1, how do you see God? Number 2, how do I see myself? And of course that can unearth lots of things. Common themes, sometimes you'll bump into the same thing. Like for me, you're lazy, you'll never amount to anything would be some of that. And so I told her, just journal a bit around that to see if anything shifted in just the fundamental way that you see yourself. And then the third question is, what do I have to do to please God and get my needs met? And what that question does is it kind of gives you an opportunity to clear the fog away to see if you've fallen back into some form of works or performance or rule keeping, instead of just keeping it simple that Jesus did enough, Jesus is enough for me to be completely accepted. And I find in my own life, and my daughter found in hers, that recognizing that her thoughts had shifted and just doing something that focused her on thinking about what she was thinking about. Now, that's such a weird way to say it. I'm going to say it again. It got her thinking about what she was thinking about. Because here's the problem. We tend to live on autopilot, meaning our thoughts just kind of run where they run and where they've always run, and we just follow them. And they take us to certain emotional places or certain behavioral places, and we just follow them. And what we need to learn to do is monitor and manage our thought life. 2 Corinthians 10 said, take your thoughts captive. Romans 12:2 and Ephesians 4 talked about that the key to change, deep change and lasting change, is changing the way we think. I believe thinking is really talking to yourself. All right? Now let me give you a weird little formula, and it'll be on the screen also. BTFA equals R. B plus T plus F plus A equals R. Dude, how's that going to do me any good? B stands for what you believe. T stands for what you think. F for what you feel. A for how you act. R for the result. So here's what I'm saying. What you believe drives what you think. What you think drives what you feel. What you feel drives how you act. Altogether, that determines the results you see and experience in life. What you believe drives what you think drives what you feel. Now, what is this whole lesson about? How to manage our emotions. It's hard to grab an emotion. What you can do is learn to monitor and manage your thoughts. And it's a really, really powerful way to level out your responses to different situations, people, and things. One of the most powerful things you can learn to do is take responsibility for your part in creating your emotions and your responses. And your part, remember the situation, and then the way the guy was thinking changed the way he felt and acted. Your part that I'd recommend is you focus on how you're thinking. The big truth for me in this lesson is this: external events do not cause your emotions. External events do not cause your emotions. How you interpret the event, how you assign meaning to the event, that is what causes your emotional and behavioral responses. And if you think of thinking as talking to yourself, it kind of helps you feel more intentionally involved in it. So I hope that's been helpful. And I love the simplicity, again, simple and easy not being the same thing, the simplicity of working on thought management, you might say, instead of directly trying to impact our emotions. So as we're in this quest to develop healthier boundaries, to build healthier boundaries, can other people help us? And I believe they can. And we're going to talk about that in our next lesson. All right? See you then. Hey, I know I'm probably not supposed to have favorites, but this is one of my favorite topics. This whole idea of ants, automatic negative thoughts. Now, ants aren't my favorite, but killing our ants is my favorite. And I found that all of us have somewhere around 3 lies lodged in our soul from earlier developmental stages, earlier experiences, usually tied to the core key people in our life. It's really beneficial to catch these lingering lies. Like, for instance, you're on your way to a meeting and you feel yourself tightening up. If you were to slow down and say, okay, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? I think what you'd find is these lies are just gently poking you. They're not gonna like you. You know, you never do well in new situations. You fumble over your words and they trip you up. And here's the crazy thing. They become self-fulfilling prophecies. People aren't gonna like me. You go in the room and you're all uptight because you think they're not gonna like you. And guess what? You act all kind of tight and they don't respond well to you. So what if you just took a sheet of paper and went through a day, a couple of days, and wrote out what are some of my automatic negative thoughts? For most of us, they're not going to be that hard to find. But what I encourage you to look for is most of us have what I call one master lie. And for me, it was, you're lazy and you'll never amount to anything. I don't know what yours will be, but make a list of your just kind of general negative thoughts toward yourself. And then ask God to help you find where's that 1 to 3 that really tend to torture me.